let's move into Formula One land because it's supposed to be the off season. It's supposed to be quiet times in the pod, but we've had a bit of chaos, bit of Aussie chaos thrown
Um,
into the European winter.
Aussie on Aussie hate crime.
Yep. So what do you make of the whole Ricciardo Piastri fiasco? The Mark Webber fiasco, let's call it that, because he's the one that's pulling all the strings.
There's so many different angles, right? Nothing's
Mm,
been confirmed. The only thing that's been confirmed is Piastri's come out and said, "I'm not racing for Alpine."
mm.
McLaren, I don't know if they're overcompensating, but they've been posting things about Danny Rick all
Yep.
week.
Yep.
Um, Take that, as admin saying he's still our driver for the time being, or if it's them trying to overcompensate, I don't know.
Mm,
Um, for me, looking at how well Ricardo did in 2020 in that Renault, it wouldn't be such a bad move for him to go back to Alpine, be part of a constructor, started the this car. We know
mm,
he can drive their car. I don't think it's such a horrible move. But
mm.
again, we haven't heard anything from anyone. McLaren's not talking. The only thing Alpine said is Otmar has come out and said
He
um,
expected more loyalty. That's what he said 2 hours ago.
from Oscar, but also
Mm,
when it comes to Danny Rick, that they would have no issue bringing Danny Rick back,
yep.
even though we left him in 2020, or at the end.
Yep.
Um, I don't know, mate. Like,
Yeah.
for me, it would actually make sense for Danny Rick. He got a 3-year deal at Alpine
Mm,
and gets Oscar in a car that could potentially move up the grid. I don't know McLaren, how much upward trajectory they have, considering they're not a constructor. But Webber's obviously got his little, what's it called, plan of where Oscar's going to end up.
mm. I think to be honest, I think it's actually a good thing for like if it is to play out the way we expect it to with Piastri going to McLaren
Mm.
and Ricciardo going to Alpine. I think the best thing for Ricciardo was that he didn't burn any bridges when he left Alpine,
Yeah,
and we saw him kind of maximize every result up until his final day there. So I
he was
think,
so good that year, man.
mm,
Like he
yeah,
came fifth in the constructors. He was
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. So I think there's definitely there would be optimism from Endstone for him to return because I
Yeah.
still, he's still definitely got what it takes. Um,
Hey, hey, can we get that? I'm gonna soundbite that.
well, for them he does. For them, you've frozen on me. Um, but I think he's definitely got what it takes. I think I don't know how it's come about with the whole Piastri situation. What that does tell me though is that any speculation about O'Ward or um, Herder having a history or having some kind of chance at McLaren
No.
goes by the wayside now because they have moved to another young driver. And I
Re-
think the other good thing I mean, if Piastri goes to Alpine, straight away he gets compared with Alonso. But or that's what we were all assuming. But by him going to McLaren, I think the good thing for him is Norris is going to be the obvious number one,
Mm.
and I think his recent history at the team would owe him that. But I think what it gives Piastri is it gives him a year to just be a number two and to learn. And there's no pressure on him. I mean, when you think about how Ricardo's performed this year,
Mm.
you can't really get any worse than that. So for him, he goes in, learn behind a young guy, and then I think for season 2024, that's his real chance to take it to Norris.
But for me, right? And Alpine's a constructor. Say what you will about their recent performances. That car's moving upward. We can see
Yeah,
it.
it's definitely better than the bloody Stroll
McLaren.
project. So,
Yeah, that too. But if you're Mark Webber, you have ties with Red Bull, obviously. I
mm,
know he's got ties with Andreas Seidel, and that's where this could be coming from, the whole Porsche connection.
mm,
But wouldn't you go Oscar into AlphaTauri for a year next to Pierre, and then Checo retires, or they move Checo on in 2024, and that's Oscar into the Red Bull seat? Like, Do you know what I
Um,
mean? Like, where's the option after McLaren? That's
I
my.
th my the interesting thing for me is that I think for Red Bull, for them to do that kind of makes
Invalidates
all
the.
the makes all the investment that they've put into their young drivers like Liam Lawson up until recently, Yuri Vips, all their
They're
Red
not at the
Bull
same
development.
level.
Um, potentially
Also,
not, potentially not. But if you look at the people that are running Red Bull, I wouldn't say that they're
mm,
the most. Uh, I wouldn't
yeah, I
say
know
they're
what you mean.
humble. They've got a history of sticking to their guns and kind of trying to make it work with what they've got. So I just don't see how someone who's been developed by Alpine, raced with realistically the Ferrari team or Formula Two, how
Mm.
they're just going to kind of assume that when they've invested so much money into their own development infrastructure.
I just don't know where. Like, yeah, McLaren's a legacy team. McLaren has the history. Blah blah blah. Danny Rick's the only race winner in the last 12 years. Like,
Mm,
where is Oscar's trajectory after? Because you move him out of Alpine, the constructor. Maybe the only other seat would be a Mercedes because the engine supplier, etc. But again, they've
mm,
got their own driver program as well. So
mm.
I just, for me, the move doesn't make sense for Oscar at this point in his career.
It doesn't make sense if you don't think McLaren can get back to where they want to get to.
Hmm.
If
Do,
you believe, like, if you think that they can bridge the gap to the front running teams, and they would obviously think that they can do
hmm.
that, and they would probably think that by having two bullets in the barrel of the gun as opposed to one as it is right now, that they can do that faster. Um,
Do you think they can? In
I think
2022, do you think McLaren has the potential to match it with.
2023.
No, but I'm saying, as McLaren currently sit in the
mm,
next 5 years, do you see them taking it to Red Bull, taking it to Mercedes, taking it to Ferrari?
5 years, I would be more confident. I would say that there's probably a good chance. I think the thing for Oscar that works well though is that he doesn't need them to be like that next year.
Hmm.
Um,
But I don't
so
imagine they're signing him for a 2-year contract.
I don't imagine that he would sign for anything less than a 2 year contract.
That's what I mean. Like, that'll be a 3 or 4 year contract. I feel
I don't know. I think 2 years will be what it is.
two
Um,
two plus one maybe.
maybe, yeah, maybe a two plus
Hmm.
one, but I think it'd be probably a 2 year deal. And I think um, you'd also have to assume that
Hmm.
there's been a pretty convincing discussion about where the team's heading. And you also need to take into consideration, I'm pretty sure that their wind tunnel comes
Hmm.
online at the end of this year.
Yep.
Hopefully that expedites the development process of the team because all their issues are still relating to the
Aero.
aerodynamics of the car. So there's probably a pretty convincing conversation taking place about that team. And there's obviously in the last, I made mention of it in our last podcast as well, but there was rumors about BMW potentially coming back to Formula One as an engine supplier and a connection being developed with McLaren right now.
Hmm.
In that regard too, if that's the projection that they're selling underneath the table to someone like Weber and Piastri,
Hmm.
and there's some conviction to that development, then that's what they're selling. And that's kind of, that
Yeah.
works. That works for me.
I think I'm hearing, and take this as you will. You'll. I don't think I know how you'll take it, but I'm hearing that Danny Rick, if he does go to Alpine, will have a clause in his contract if Mercedes come calling. Because apparently Toto has been seen talking to Danny Rick as part of a succession plan
But for Hamilton,
for when Lewis retires.
mm,
Yeah. And um, yeah, I don't know.
interesting.
That's
Well, I mean, he had one such clause when he signed with them last time as well.
hmm.
Um,
Apparently Bottas was the option that Hamilton wanted because he felt less
yeah,
threatened.
yeah. Well, that makes sense too.
Hmm.
Um, Listen, honestly, I think that it works in the best favor for both.
Same.
I mean, I think it works out better for Ricciardo. The interesting thing will be for him, and this is where it could get tricky for him, if he was to go to Alpine next year and does not beat Ocon.
Even yeah, because he spanked him. What was it? I think 15-2 in
Mm.
2020.
Yeah, so if he was to regress and kind of was to lose to Ocon next year, I'm pretty sure that that would be
Yeah.
the end of the debate, um, as it pertains to his
Mm.
demise. But in regards to having a fresh start, a team he's been at, a team he likes, they're on an upward trajectory. It has to be said. I mean, by the time we get to next year, there's probably a decent chance that Alpine and McLaren are fighting over the same real estate for fourth in the constructors. So that could be really interesting to see as well.
If
But
if they do all this happens,
yeah,
I'm here for Danny Rick being an absolute prick for the rest of the season and not listening to team orders and all that sort of shit.
but the
Oh,
problem is we've already seen he's played his hand in that regard, and he's a team player.
yeah, but if you're not there next year, who gives a shit?
Well, you could have said the same thing when he left Alpine, but I don't think it's the way I don't think it's in his constitution to act in that particular way.
But the way this has been handled by McLaren could potentially leave him with some sour. I don't know. I just hope he
Yeah,
just
that's
fucking
fair.
does what he wants to do.
Yeah, but the other thing is, in order to play that game,
Yes, yes, yes. He needs to be closer.
yeah, that's the other thing. Like you need to be there or thereabouts at least. So it's definitely interesting. I think it's spiced up the racing world a little bit.
Mm.
We saw Alpine. We saw Albon re-sign with Williams. I think that was a warranted and worthy re-signing for them. I can't believe he's still there for another year. I thought that there would have been other teams knocking on the door for his signature, but it's good to see that
Mm.
he's rewarded their loyalty with another season. They're obviously making improvements as well. But yeah, it's supposed to be the off season, and all we're getting is transfer rumors. So Formula One still on the back burner, still kind of giving us some goods.
Would you would you think that Alpine say to Fernando, take a seat for the rest of the year, and Danny Rick leaves McLaren now?
No,
No, don't think
no.
it'll happen.
I think because Alpine are probably in a position where they say if our car keeps developing the way it is, we have a chance at fourth this year. Because right now, you'd probably
Third or
say that
fourth.
are McLaren ahead of them.
No,
Really? Well, then
it's
they
like
got to fight. They got to
yeah.
fight for that then. So I don't think like it's in their best interest to have both of the like they're both driving well, Ocon and Alonso,
Hmm.
and they want that. Like money's money. Fourth place is still an improvement for them. Um,
Can you see Alonso playing the team game, but now that he's leaving, I think that'll be an absolute nightmare.
yeah. What I actually think will happen is Ocon will get schooled in the art of
Shithousery.
just old school racing.
Yeah.
I mean, he's gonna realize. I think what he's actually gonna realize, actually, in saying that, Ocon in and of himself has got some thick skin. I mean, his years at Force India with Perez,
Mm.
if they showed anything, was that he can play the mongrel game as well. So we might have a spicy end to the season. The interesting thing will be to see if Alpine can actually contain it and control it, so that they can maintain that fourth place in the championship, because there is enough kindling there between
Ooh.
the kind of relationship that's developed between
Mm.
those two drivers for it to blow up in their face. And by
Yeah.
that face, I mean Alpine's, which is
100%.
interesting.
Yeah.
Mm.